Hi guys, welcome back to Trademanza's weekly series, the stock market recap. In these videos, we bring to you all the interesting events of the market from the last week and also where Nifty could be headed to the coming week. So as discussed in last week's video, Nifty was at very crucial levels of 18,000, and from looking at this, we can see that it has not been able to sustain 18,000 as there are a lot of bearish candles. अब एक्चुअली व्हाट्स लुकिंग डेंजरस इज 17,400 के नीचे देखा जाए तो कोई सपोर्ट नहीं है. अगर ये 17,400 का लेवल टूटता है तो इसके बाद मार्केट जाएगा सीधा 17,200 और फिर 17,000 एंड देन उसके बाद वी माइट रीटेस्ट द प्रीवियस लोज विच द मार्केट हैज मेड बिकॉज ग्लोबल क्यूज भी अच्छे नहीं है. मूविंग ऑन टू द टाइम फ्रेम विद सम मूविंग एवरेजेस, वी कैन सी इसने कोशिश करी है मूविंग एवरेज पे सपोर्ट लेने की, बट एक्चुअली ये जो फ्राइडे की जो बेरिश कैंडल है इसकी वजह से ऐसा लग रहा है कि मार्केट ये 17,400 का लेवल तोड़ के मूविंग एवरेज के नीचे ही क्लोजिंग देगा. अगर 1 आवर टाइम फ्रेम भी देखा जाए तो फाइनली ये जो अप ट्रेंड चल रहा था काफ़ी देर से वो टूट चुका है और अब मार्केट ने मूविंग एवरेज पे रेजिस्टेंस ली है. और यहाँ पे भी देखा जाए तो 17,400 के नीचे बिल्कुल एकदम कुछ सपोर्ट है ही नहीं, सीधा लगता है 17,000 लेवल पे जाएगा मार्केट. मूविंग ऑन टू ऑप्शन चेन, अगर 17,500 का देखा जाए तो 17,500 पे देर आर मोर नंबर ऑफ कॉल्स सोल्ड एज द नंबर ऑफ पुट्स, विच मीन्स दैट पीपल आर स्टिल समवट बुलिश अबाउट दीज लेवल्स. बट ये लेवल्स एक्चुअली इसलिए हो सकता है क्योंकि फ्राइडे तक लोगों ने अपनी पोजीशंस ढंग से बनाई नहीं होंगी. और अगर सपोर्ट वाली साइड पे देखा जाए तो 17,200 पे काफ़ी अच्छी पुट सेलिंग है, मीनिंग दिस कुड बी अ गुड सपोर्ट इवन 17,400 लेवल्स पे. बट अगेन ये डेटा सिर्फ फ्राइडे तक का है तो लोगों ने अपनी पोजीशंस अपडेट नहीं करी होगी. एंड द अदर इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग अबाउट द मार्केट दिस वीक इज़ दैट अब सारे रिजल्ट्स आना शुरू हुए हैं. पिछले हफ्ते में इन्फोसिस और टीसीएस के रिजल्ट्स आए हैं, अभी एचडीएफसी बैंक के भी रिजल्ट्स आ गए हैं. तो रिजल्ट्स के बाद यूजुअली मार्केट में प्रॉफिट बुकिंग होती है, तो दैट इज़ वन बिग प्रॉब्लम until unless the results are exceptionally good. So now let's move on to some stock specific news and discuss the results of Infosys and TCS. Infosys का March quarter result was somewhat below expectations, even as its profit and revenue growth were better than TCS. The second largest IT player, Infosys, on Wednesday said it delivered the highest annual growth in a decade with broad-based performance. कुछ key takeaways हैं. It has beaten TCS again. Infosys numbers managed to beat those of TCS for another quarter. For the last few quarters, the trend has been the same. Infosys said its revenue growth was 22.7% year over year, while TCS was only 16%. And Infosys also reported a 12% increase in its net profit, which was only 8% for TCS. The company has said its board has recommended a final dividend of 16 rupees per share. Together with the interim dividend of 15 rupees per share already paid, the total dividend would be 31 rupees, which is a 15% increase as compared to 2021. However, attrition rate is one big problem. IT services voluntary attrition rate for the last 12 months at the end of March increased to a high of 27.7%. In comparison, the attrition was 25% and 10% in the quarters of December and March 2021. And the number of large deals win has been falling actually. Large deal signings actually have come down to 2.3 billion compared to 2.5 billion. But this was understandable given March quarter is usually a seasonally weak quarter. Management commentary is that we continue to gain market share as a result of sustained clients' confidence in our ability to successfully navigate their digital journey. With the acceleration of digital disruptions across industries, we see immense potential to engage and partner with clients as they transform, adapt, and thrive. Analyst commentary is that Infosys report a subdued performance. However, most analysts still have a buy recommendation with a 1 year target price of 2250. Moving on to the next stock specific news, which is Tata Motors. Tata Motors' fourth quarter full year 2022 global wholesale volumes have risen only 2% Y over Y, which is why the stock has fallen 5% for the week. Global wholesale of all Tata Motors commercial vehicles and Tata Daewoo range in the fourth quarter stood at 1,22,000, higher by 12%, and the sales of the Jaguar Land Rover group stood at 3,34,000, which is a 2% increase. Global wholesales for Jaguar Land Rover was 89,000, and the sales for the quarter stood at 19,570 vehicles, while Land Rover vehicles for the quarter were at 69,000. Shares of Tata Motors declined 2.9% to 438. On a consolidated basis, the Automoja reported a net loss of 1,300 crore in the third quarter of the 22nd year against a net profit of 3,000 crore in Q3 full year 2021. Net sales also fell 5%. and compared to these previous quarters. HDFC Bank's results have also come out. While the results are somewhat good, they have still missed analysts' expectations because the expectations set for this bank itself are very high. The private lender on Saturday reported a 22.8% year on year rise in net profit. This is the first time the company has crossed the 20% threshold. However, analysts were expecting a profit of around 24%. Net interest income, the difference between the interest income a bank earns from its lending and interest activities, rose 10.2% to eighth interest to 18,872 crores. However, the net interest margin stood at 4%, which is the lowest ever which HDFC Bank has reported. So, actually, when it comes to the net profit, when it comes to revenue, everything was below analyst expectations, and this has somewhat been a weak quarter for HDFC Bank. Moving on to some global economic news, the global economy is now bracing for the China inflation shock. This is happening because China is going through a very चाइना कोविड केसेस काफ़ी ज़्यादा बढ़ चुके हैं जिसकी वजह से कंट्री में लॉकडाउन लगा है और वहाँ पे भी इन्फ्लेशन काफ़ी बढ़ रहा है. China's battle against COVID-19 is set to deliver the world economy another blow on top of the war in Ukraine. Chinese manufacturing hubs are seizing up as authorities stamp out fresh outbreaks. इसकी वजह से China, which is the manufacturing hub of the world, is going to shut down, and चीज़ों का shortage फिर से होगा, which is not going to help the inflation situation which the world is already going through. Even moving on to the US inflation numbers, the US inflation climbed to 8.5% in March, which is the highest since 1981. The war in Ukraine has driven up energy costs. As figures strengthen expectations, Federal Reserve will raise interest rates again next month. The latest CPI, which measures the price of a basket of goods and services, comes after the index rose by 7.9% through February, the fastest pace in 40 years. Driven up by continuing supply chain problems, soaring demand, and rising energy prices, inflation is now at levels unseen in the US since Ronald Reagan took the White House from Jimmy Carter. Moving on to some other global economic news is that other countries are also stepping up their battle against inflation. New Zealand is the first country which has increased interest rates by 0.5% instead of just 0.25%, as they have taken their interest rates up from 1% to 1.5%. So guys, that's it for this week's important recaps. Stay tuned to our channel because as we already mentioned, ये result season है, काफी interesting companies के results आएंगे and it's going to be a very volatile month in the markets.